actually get started. Thank you everybody so much for joining, obviously the unconference today, but also my session means a lot, so thank you so much. So today I wanted to share with you some of the lessons that I personally learned being in product management for the last 15 years. And most people typically like talking about all of the successes. We all, and I obviously do it at the same time, like I look at all of those people, all of those successful people in product management, and you always feel like they have figured out how to build successful products, and they do it all right. But I sometimes feel like I made a mistake here and there, and they probably didn't because they are already successful. I don't know if that's familiar to you, if you actually ever felt like, maybe you have not been necessarily always making the right decisions, but the bottom of the story is that I feel like everybody is always making mistakes. And the most important part that you actually take from it is the learnings that you take away from it. And ultimately wanted to share with you some of the things that I have done and kind of how did it impact my personal career and what I typically teach and preach to all the teams that I work with. So looking at the beginning of my career, obviously read all the books that I can only imagine about product management. And it's all about you need to understand the customer needs and definitely understand what the customer wants and kind of what are the problems that they're trying to solve. Spend all the different kind of ways to understand that. Then you obviously have to work with your engineers and help them understand how to build the most successful products and how kind of to translate what you learn to what they have to be building. So then kind of what you actually wanted it to do actually matches with what they have built at the end. You obviously also spend all of your time working with your user experience people kind of to make sure that the experience is great because that is also really important. However, throughout the years, I learned that this is not everything that the product manager should be doing. There's definitely more, and I learned it the hard way. Once I actually saw the statistics of 75% of all of the digital commerce products, or digital commerce, all the digital products in general. I'm in digital commerce space, so digital commerce is always my thing. So 75% of all the products that are ever built fail. However, we most of the time talk about those 25%. And I realized that it's easier to think about you being that exceptional 25% and never making mistakes, and that feels so good. But in reality, that was not the case. So the first story is, at the beginning of my career, we were with my team, and it was a really successful company. We had 25% of the global market share for digital commerce. It's a lot. Global market share of 25% of all the digital commerce is on that product. So we were building this really successful product, and there was a moment when we had to refactor one front-end framework, technical thing, to another technical framework. Obviously, kind of as for the product manager, it felt like that was a technical decision, and you obviously have your engineers, and product managers kind of always sometimes doubt, are they technical enough? Should I actually let my engineers do it, or should I get involved? At the beginning of my career, I thought it's a technical thing, so I would let my engineers to do the thing that they're actually good at. So my engineering team obviously did an amazing research. We looked at all the different technical aspects of this framework and why it was the most important one to migrate from one thing to another. So we spent all the different analysis, pros and cons of why this is going to be faster and this is going to be new technology. This new technology is future-proof and this is something that is being adopted now by the market. So we then spent 6 months implementing and refactoring our platform that was heavily built for developers into this new technology. Then there comes the moment when we all go on stage and at that company we had those really big customer and partner events with thousands of people. So I go on stage together with my engineering partner, and we start talking about how, you know what, we heard you, we know that this specific framework, it was something that was not as modern, and we obviously had to refactor and migrate to something new. And we ask the questions did you feel that way? And everybody's like, yeah, absolutely. And we're like, here's the answer. We have done it, we invested months and months of work, and here's a new framework. And we start talking about the benefits and how it's great for them and what kind of benefits it's going to give them. And looking at the room, I see that the faces turn not into the positive way. being scared, like I'm waiting for this Q&A and the end of the session knowing that there's going to be nothing good. Like you can literally see that some people were like, what the hell is happening right now? And exactly that happened. So we come to the Q&A and somebody raised a question and they say, you know what, like what you just done is like absolutely stupid. And we're like, why? Like, it's like all the benefits. And we started explaining again, like, it's technical framework. The one was outdated. This one is modern. And here's all the benefits, right? And people are like, yeah, but this is stupid. And we're like, what is happening? And then the other person after another person, they start speaking up and just saying to us that we're wrong. So we try to explain and kind of like, because we've done the work. We're technical people. We understand what we have done and why. So we come to the end of the session and like nothing worked. Like however we try to explain the benefits, nothing actually worked. So I suggest let's actually all meet after this conference in the coffee shop, and everybody who's in this room who has something to say about this not really good decision that apparently we made, come and talk to us. So apparently what happened, we were building this really technical solution that was focused for developers. And all of those other companies who were building solutions on top of our platform, they had their own engineering teams. Those engineering teams were trained in a certain technology. If we were to move to a new technology that was so different but felt really good for us internally, they had all of those people, they had to retrain thousands of people. That would also mean that they would need to invest money in training all of those people. If they do that, in that period of time, they would not be serving their customers. Obviously, it's a hit on their revenue. If they retrain all those people and actually invest money in the training, they need to up their prices. If they do that, the prices for our product that we actually then deliver to the end customer goes up. So ultimately, with that small technical decision, we have created the whole problem for the whole industry and the whole partnership around us. And it all started with the moment when we as product managers, and I specifically, thought that that was just a technical decision because we were migrating from one technical framework to another one. So the biggest lesson learned from that is that if you think that there is a technical decision that is being made, think as a product manager, not about why this framework is important, but what kind of benefit it actually provides. How does it connect to the business model and the revenue models? And all of those kind of not really obvious steps that it actually leads to. So then you, all of a sudden, don't jeopardize the product with just this one technical decision that you as a product manager decided to actually let your engineering team to do just from a technical perspective. So that was a huge learning experience for me. And kind of from there on, I always kind of understand and get involved into technical decisions, but not to argue with engineers, should we do it or should we not? Or do I know that there's a better technical framework that we should be using? But mostly to understand how it actually will connect to the business model and to the prices and to the partners if we have them, and how it will impact the product that I'm building, because it's not just a technical decision. The second story is a slightly different one. Also at the beginning of my career, so we were obviously listening to our customers, and we have built this amazing product roadmap based on the user research, a lot of different investigations and conversations and all the market trends and all of that. So we have done everything that we had to do. And I was really proud of the product roadmap that I have built for the 12 months because I knew every single thing actually came from a market, and specifically kind of I knew that it's gonna drive a lot of success in the market. However, at some moment, there was this meeting that popped up on my calendar, and that was from our customer success team. So they scheduled a meeting, and they asked us to walk them through the way how this specific, like one specific feature or product can be enabled for the customer that is already onboarding to our product. So we come to the room with the product management team, and we start looking at each other and trying to understand, like, how did it happen that we actually never heard of that thing that they are trying to enable now for the customer that is already trying to onboard? So we look at each other, trying to understand, maybe I just don't remember it, maybe somebody else remembers it, and we understand that it's a common thing. Nobody knows what they're talking about. Ultimately, what happened, there was this moment where the salespeople, obviously, they were selling how they thought, they understand the product. So ultimately, for them, they had an idea that there was a specific thing that was resonating on the market, and they were selling that to customers without actually ever talking to the product management team to understand whether or not we actually have that thing. And we just heard about, like in a previous session, about pretty much the same problem. It's all about the trust that you have to build with your salespeople. And it's easier said than done, but ultimately, kind of what has happened in that specific situation, because we already had a customer, we already promised them this product, we then had to spend months and months to quickly put together kind of this product, set aside all of our other products and that perfect product roadmap in order to cover that gap. However, the biggest lesson learned from that is that I realized that when you start at a new company, or maybe even at your existing company, as a product person, what you should be doing, especially if you work in a big, like, B2B enterprise companies and you have a sales-led motion, always start learning about the product from a sales perspective. Don't go into like, this is my product and here's all the features and what it does and what it doesn't. Because I think that is going to be a helpful information, but what I would recommend is always try to learn about the product from how the salespeople actually present it to the customers. And then once you understand that, and you understand the value and what kind of benefits you actually get out of it, then look into the product as a product person, and understand, is there a gap between the sales promise and the reality? And that is going to help you, first of all, understand, like, what do you operate with? But then also at the same time, we'll understand what actually resonates on the market with a salesperson. And I'm not saying that all of that is going to be the right one, but it's going to be definitely helpful insight for you. But also, you will actually understand, like, it would be easier for you to start building trust with them because you would know exactly where they're coming from, and you would not be surprised at the end that somebody has promised something that is not there. So this is something that I find most of the time I'm not being talked, like, when you talk about the product management, or like when you read like product management materials. But it's absolutely important for the product managers to be successful, to understand and build that trust with the salesperson, so then you would have a chance to avoid all of those type of mistakes, and then actually not be surprised at the end that there was something that was not in the product. So it's definitely something that I take, and I actually use that strategy in lots of other companies where I worked after, and that always helped me kind of start on the same ground with the salesperson and kind of build my way into how do I address the gap, or how do I change kind of their impact and influence them, and also come from the same ground instead of just being at the end screaming and being disappointed that the salesperson yet again sold something that is not there, which we all know happens a lot. So the third story that I wanted to share with you is also on a different note. So many years after, so now taking all of those learnings, that technical decisions also make a huge impact on your business. That you also need to understand how your product is presented to the market and not kind of just looking into the product itself. So I thought that like I actually already knew everything that I needed to know about the product management, and now this is the time when I'm going to be building those successful products and no mistakes are going to happen. So this time we were building this new amazing product, and we have spent a lot of research aligning the sales, aligning marketing, aligning customer success. Everybody knew, can you sell it, can you not, and how you would present it, what kind of technical decisions we are making, how it is going to generate the money, and all of that. So we spent like about 9 months developing this product with hundreds, like not hundreds, but like lots of millions of investments into that, and also pretty decent team. So we were coming closer to the moment when we were about to launch this product, and this is a moment that all the product teams are always extremely excited about, and this is the big celebration moment. So we're kind of prepared all of the materials, the sales people prepared, or the marketing people prepared all of the sales enablement materials, all the demos, everything that was needed. So we go into the room and we say, well, I don't know, the big moment has come. Soon enough, we're going to be launching this product. And we start talking about like, okay, but is it going to be like an add-on to our existing product portfolio, or is it going to be included as a, like, basically in the same license? All of those, really important pricing, packaging conversation that should have happened. And we're like, yeah, no, absolutely, it's going to be an add-on. It's like all of that is easy. We totally understand it. And then somewhere, like in the room, this question starts coming up, but like, how much would we charge for it? And we're like, oh yeah, that's a great question. I wish we thought about it, but let's know how much our customers are happy to pay us for. And everybody was like, yeah, no, based on the market, I think it's going to be like maybe 50K a year. I don't know, I think like, that seems like a pretty decent price because it's an enterprise product. Everything is going to be all right. We're like, cool. Let us go like back to the drawing board and calculate all the costs that actually went into building this product, all the maintenance costs, and also obviously add the margin on top of it. So what we realized that we have built a product that was way more expensive than what our market has been able to pay for. And that was a huge learning experience because what we realized that we have left that important moment to be there, to be undefined until the last moment. And like when we realized that it's not an easy thing. Ultimately, in order to actually bring the product cost down, you need to now spend another maybe a couple of months to actually refactor the product. Maybe in certain cases, use some cheaper solutions, maybe host it somewhere else, maybe actually optimize it for a different use case. And that was a simple thing that was actually not considered at the beginning that led to all of those decisions to actually impact the product. So the lesson learned from that was that if you're designing a big product and you know that this is going to be a commercial product, think about all of that at the beginning. Don't let yourself be surprised by the actual numbers at the end because sometimes we all hope for the best, but it actually might be the opposite. And this is something that I obviously kind of learned the hard way. And then from there, we always kind of change our approaches on how we develop the product, how we think about the cost implementation, but also the maintenance operations cost for the product, especially if you provide product as a service, and especially in the market conditions like it is right now. So those are the three biggest lessons that I wanted to share with you. All of those things is something that obviously impacted how I look at the product and what kind of questions we discuss internally with the teams, with the broader kind of leadership team in order to understand if we're making the right decisions or we're not. But hopefully that is something that I know you can also take away for yourself and think about some certain aspects that you might not be thinking when you're building the products. And with that, thank you so much. That's pretty much it for me. We're a little bit earlier, which kind of I was planning, but are there any questions or maybe somebody wants to share their stories of how you guys maybe didn't necessarily went through the right process and all the right considerations?
My name is Bert. I'm a project manager, but I want to go back to product manager for another future career path planning. So what is your experience with feedback loop, customer feedback loop? What are the common ones you have seen and what are some techniques and mechanisms?
Yeah, so the question was about the customer feedback and the feedback loops. I think ultimately, like, it's really important, like when you launch products, obviously customer feedback is one of the most important things. However, like what I also saw and which we also like started adopting a lot now is that most of the time, I know you get the feedback about the usability of the feature and what it does, but I think kind of in most of the cases, you kind of need to look much deeper. It's all about, like, ultimately, it's all about the product market fit, even when your company or your product is already past kind of this initial product market fit. So you're looking into, like, is it the right thing? Like, does it solve the right problem? But also, like, does it solve the problem in the right way? Does it solve the problem in a kind of in a way that is cost efficient for this customer? Are there any cheaper or maybe other cost-effective solutions that might disrupt what you have? And most of the time I saw, like, and I've been definitely guilty of doing the same thing at the beginning, like always looking into like how people use my product as a software, you know, like, I know how do they like the flow, I know do they click the buttons that we were envisioning, but it's much deeper. So if you want to build the products for stickiness, it actually has to go into the commercial side as well, which is not an easy thing to assess, but like you definitely need to be building kind of processes around that.
Thank you. It's just a follow-up question for especially with the customer feedback. One common thing I always observed is the feedback would be very generic, okay? Good, bad, you know. You don't get, sometimes you just go on and get the biased feedback sometimes. They'll just give you a rating of 8 sometimes, but you don't know actually what's the friction there is, you know, between the product, like how you imagine how they are using it. How do you just deal with it?
Yeah. I think so. The question was like, if you're only getting the feedback like good versus bad, but like how do you actually get more out of it? I think again, like the challenge with getting the feedback is because like you need to understand what exactly are you trying to get out of it. Like, what is the biggest fundamental question that you're trying to find the answer to? And then kind of like, are you trying to validate your commercial model, or are you trying to make sure that the people actually like the user experience, meaning that like regardless how much it costs, do people actually like using my product in itself? Or do they actually solve the problem that they had with this product, and therefore you're trying to assess that? Because I think like ultimately that's kind of what you're trying to get to. And then kind of from there, like if you understand their intent, like then you actually frame your questions in a different way. Because for example, let's say if you have a product and maybe it's great and it solves the problem, but again, going back to the cost, maybe there is a much cheaper alternative, but you actually never ask that question. So the customers will always tell you like, yes, it's great because it actually does what I need, but there is a cheaper alternative, and you actually never looked at that. So it might not be the product experience or the kind of like the user needs to the product solution problem, but for example, the cost. It might be something opposite, but I think most of us have been trained really well on kind of like, there is a need and there is a solution, and you kind of need to understand, like, does it fit together? But kind of sometimes there's like completely different reasons why somebody would churn from your product. For example, like in my case, I have always been in this kind of platform place where there is a bigger user persona of developers who are using the product in order to develop something on top. But ultimately, we're selling this product to the larger companies who want to have digital commerce business models. So, like, if I can keep asking questions of the end user, like, do you like this product? Is the product good? It's a good question to ask, and you can get like good or bad or whatever. But ultimately, there is this kind of those developers who are building on top of your product that actually influence, the success of my product much more than kind of what those customers are going to be saying, because they are the ones who are ultimately either advocating for a product or not. And this is something that, like, I think is really important to understand also, like, what are the different personas that play, who actually has the biggest influence, whether it's the end user who uses the product or the decision maker or the technical persona, because for different types of products, it's going to be different answer. Yeah.
So in your reflection of the failures that you're describing, did you always pinpoint that as a process issue or the quality of data issue in your feedback loops, or was it a blend? And how did you iterate through that, or what are you doing today now in your processes, and have you morphed them to address these?
Yeah. So the way I look at, to me, I think the biggest realization throughout the years has been that the product management, like, if you want to build, and obviously everybody wants to build a successful product, it's not just a product function, and it's not just product plus technology, like tech team or engineering team, or maybe UX. Ultimately, like, if we are working for commercial companies, we are building a commercial product. Like, yes, we're building products that customers love, but it's a commercial thing. So ultimately, all of those other stakeholders, whether it's legal or finance, all of them need to be involved equally, because you are creating like business. Like, the product is just a thing that you sell, but ultimately, like, it's way more cross-functional. And I think, like, I know sometimes, like, it's talked about, like, in a lot of different materials, but not as much. So what I see is a lot of the aspiring, like, young product managers who start just their product management careers, like, they focus on, I'm a product manager, I need to speak to the customer, but then I have my engineering team and my UX team, and this is pretty much, maybe sales people or product marketing people a little bit. But what I'm trying to always explain then to my team that I work with now, that, like, understand what is that business model that we're creating and how all of those different teams kind of are part of creating the sustainable business model. So I think it's a process issue, but also, like, expanding your horizons. Like, it shouldn't be, like, the great products are not created within just a product department. And I think, like, that's something that is most of the time being misunderstood, especially, like, when you just start the career and you've just been kind of seeing those three circles that overlap, and they don't cover all the different angles of the company. Like, legal is a perfect example. Like, I remember how many years in my career, like, I never spoke to the legal department at all. Like, it was just not a thing. But then at some point, then you actually go you go to a new market, and then you realize in order for you to actually operate with the same product in that new market, you have to have those specific like legal requirements, or maybe there is different rights for IP or whatever that is. So if you want to actually build a successful business in that market, you need to understand how your product is going to adapt to that market. But that's, again, sounds like obvious when you kind of like went through it already. But in reality, a lot of like most of the like at the beginning, like that was not obvious. And I remember like never even like talking to legal at the beginning, which is a huge mistake. And I wish I would have done it much earlier in my career. And now I have to understand the legal language as well, so to some extent. I think you had a question as well.
Yeah. Stage startup company, when do you bring product manager in to help sell? Sales company I was consulting with, sales brought the product head in early, and he kept saying, showing the product roadmap, saying, yeah, we're going to have this out next month. But then next month would come, wouldn't happen. Then it would be 3 months, 6 months. But he kept pulling in product in to make the sale on the trials. So he was successful selling a bunch of trials, very large companies. But product just wasn't ready. But kept bringing product. And product I didn't push back. He just gave the same, but slightly different data.
Yeah. No, I think that's so the question is like at the early stage startup, like at what period of time or at what moment do you actually bring product as of like product management function and the product people that are going to be in the room? I think like there is no like answer when exactly, but I think it all depends on like what exactly you're trying to solve. Because like if the company and that's just my point of view, like if the company is searching for the product market fit, ultimately like you're trying, like every deal or every conversation is like trialing out, like, do I have the product market fit? So like at that stage, to me, I think it's pretty normal where you have a prospect, you're already in a room with somebody, which is a huge success. And then you're trying to say, well, no, like our product does this, and then you get the feedback, like, oh, our product does this, and people like, yes, I love it, but like maybe you actually have not built it. I think kind of like having that early validation is okay for the moment when you're trying to find this product market fit. So I ultimately, at the early stage startups, think that the product managers kind of go there to do discovery. Like it's a sales pitch, but you ultimately do discovery. And as long as kind of like everybody goes in the room with the same expectation that there is no magically a product that you can kind of just with one click deploy, I think that is like, as long as everybody's on the same page, that is fine. And there's a little bit of expectation setting. When your company is kind of like progressed and now you're trying to build this repeatable business model, then kind of it should start, like the sales should start focusing more on selling what you have, because supposedly you already found your product market fit. And I think like that's actually something that a lot of people struggle with, because I know like at one stage you're trying to do a little bit of discovery and this opportunistic selling is okay. But like, when you're like trying to build repeatable, scalable business model, like that is not okay as much, because you should not be going after like, this customer wants this customer wants that. And then my first story that I shared, like about how the sales people in our company sold something that was not there, it was pretty much a sign of that, because they used to sell opportunistically while kind of selling for for finding the product market fit. But then at some point, we were past that. We already had a bunch of customers, and we were not able to kind of like, you want this, you want that, like, like all of that is possible, because what we needed to do is actually try to sell more of what we have, instead of just kind of making all of those promises. And I think like, when you realize that moment and when do you switch, I think is really important, but it's always kind of like so nuanced to the company that you work for and the right moment.
I was going to say, I think a lot of companies make the mistake to think of product market fit way too early. In fact, a lot of companies never get to product market fit when they think they're in product market fit. The better way to think about it is like the first $10 million you're going to be in a product market fit. You only reach product market fit at a much later stage. I think a lot of companies, this is the problem of startups and why they fail, because they get to a point where they think they have a product, when really they still haven't nailed exactly the problem, understanding exactly the problem they're trying to solve.
Yeah, that's true.
And it takes much longer. I mean, there was I think at least a HubSpot story, Dharmesh was saying like they didn't reach product market fit till really they were like already doing almost $50, $100 million in revenue. That's
very first jobs, even before then, the CEO was like, if you're building a new product, you as product manager have to go out and help doing the sales. And I think in general, we don't want to get ourselves caught up in sales for the long-term sales support. But early on, I think that is a great recommendation to go out and engage in sales.
Yeah. And thank you for that. And like, I think for that specific moment, like I also, because there's a lot of like this notion of like sales versus product people. And like, I know there's lots of memes that I know we all see of like, oh, like salesperson again, like promise something that we don't have. But I think it's really important for like at any stage to actually build that trust and relationship to understand what is actually clicking. Like when you talk to the customer, what clicks, and then understand like, I know maybe you actually have the feature, or maybe your product is already doing that, but like you maybe like as a product person can articulate that in a different way. Maybe you can actually help the salesperson, and then you can avoid this like so-called build trap where, I know, because for the salesperson, their fault, I guess, is because they typically translate the ask to the feature. And if we're not in the room, like then we just assume like we need to have yet another feature, but maybe there was a way to actually solve it in a different way. So anyway, I think like building the trust with salesperson and like trying to be in the room, but also understand like what are you there for? Are you trying to show the product that you already have? And I know in the previous session there were lots of good practical tips of like how not to do a walkthrough, because nobody needs your like demo walkthrough. Ultimately, you need to solve the value, like you need to solve for the value. You need to show what the value is.
I wanted to say that I like the examples you give because they resonate 100%. And that was surprising because I work in hardware products, and I always think that the experience I get as a product manager is different from what the digital product managers go through. One thing you touched on that I would like to maybe a little bit expand on is on the question on who is your customer. Because in the B2B business, there's a lot of decision makers in the value chain. It's extremely hard from a product management perspective to tackle the right one because it depends on different companies have different decision maker and they have different needs that you need jobs to be done for those particular. Can you explain that from a B2B?
Yeah. Yes, I think that is an excellent point. Like so I talk a lot about like my whole experience has been in building platform products, and there's this whole like I know that I've spoken actually with some of the people here in the room about kind of the whole world of platform products. I'm not going to bore you with that, but ultimately the most important part is when you have a product, a lot of the books and a lot of the materials are written from you build the product. And then you have your end customers, right? And like, yes, I know we recently started talking a lot about the B2B and how you actually like, I know, build the product for organizations. But those organizations are not like magically using your product, right? So you have some people who make decisions. You might have some people who integrate with your product. You might have some people who actually literally click buttons and use your products. But ultimately, like you have completely different user types and users who come to your product for different reasons. And kind of like I see it really often with the people that I, for example, work with within my teams or when we hire somebody, how people immediately talk about like, I build a product, I talk to the user. And it's like, all of that is great, but like the user sometimes is not, like you have to account for them, but they are not the only ones who are gonna give you the right insights because they might be the ones who, for example, in a digital commerce space, the users might be the ones who are going to be processing the orders, I know, like packing your shoes and kind of making sure that the order is packed. But the person who's making the decision whether or not this digital commerce platform is going to be the right one is completely different people. And they are trying to either expand markets, launch new innovative models. Maybe they want to experiment with drop shipping. Maybe they want to redefine the supply chain. So ultimately, you trying to optimize for the user and their experience clicking the buttons to process the order is not going to make any difference. Like, yes, you want that experience to be great, but that is not a success-defining criteria. And I think like there is no single answer because every product is unique. But ultimately, I think what is really important is to have a really clear understanding of all the different user types or customer types that you have, and then have like the jobs to be done. Like, what are they trying to achieve? Because there might be, and then I'm definitely looking forward to your session. Like, there might be a person whose job is to optimize the cost with the solution. So that person is never going to be clicking buttons in your product, but he's going to be looking for the ROI that this product actually brings to the table. So that is something that, and that's a completely different job to be done, which doesn't have anything to do with the UX of the product itself. I think there was a lot, because I think we're almost at time, so 2 last questions, and then happy to chat after.
So there are certain marketplaces which are fluid. So because of the upcoming technology, products, and everything, the market itself is changing. Its market is fluid. So how do we navigate that journey? Because the current products are going to get obsolete, and the new products, we have to build the new product to understand from the customer's point of view.
Yeah.
So I want to understand from the B2C point of B2C type of products.
From the B2C type of products. Well, so the question was like how to navigate the changing market dynamics. It's, I would say like from the B2B perspective, it's probably easier because like the B2B companies, they typically have the KPIs that they go after. For the B2C products, you're typically going after the customer, like, fulfilling the deeper need, whether I want to use some meditation app or something, or Uber or something, right? So I actually, I would need to think about how to solve for that in the B2C space. But for the B2B products, I think what is really important is actually to understand from those companies what their priorities are. For example, in our case, again, now I'd go back to the digital commerce space. In our case, before the pandemic, and even during the pandemic, everybody was kind of about opening new channels and trying to sell more of their products. After the pandemic, now everybody's trying to do the cost optimization, efficiency, and then your product, it might be the same, but you actually need to explain the value that you provide in completely different terms and help those customers and those businesses to achieve their KPIs. So it's not about the user experience and how the great product is, but if their goal is to sell or deliver the same revenue, sell the same amount of goods, but with less people on staff, then you kind of need to talk about a completely different angle, like how this product specifically helps them achieve that.
So in short, you keep your ears to the ground.
Yeah.
In B2C, in B2B, you are constantly talking to the customers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I think let's go for the last question.
In your talk and the previous talk, I really enjoyed is getting more involved in sales. As a PM who is strapped for time, is it sufficient to watch sales recordings, or should I prioritize being in sales calls as much as possible?
So the question was does it make sense to be involved in the sales calls or sales recordings? I think that I would recommend the following. So first, watch a couple of sales recordings because it will help you understand what are actually being asked for. Because ultimately with sales, they typically want to have people in a room that actually bring value. They don't want to have silent listeners. It's intimidating for people who are going to be on another side. It doesn't help anybody. So ultimately, I typically say, watch the recordings, understand where you can bring value, and then with that value, approach your salespeople and say, well, I watched this. I know you were explaining my product in this way. I know now I understand what customers want. In the future, I can explain this and that. This is the value that I can add. And then they would want to have you in the room because salespeople typically don't want anybody in the room who might distract people from the deal that they're trying to close. And on that, thank you all so much.